Okay, so this is what we end up with all the links together, and it kind of is floppy like it should be. There's a few things we need to do. One is that we're going to add some bits to make sure that everything fits. When you're originally designing things, you're going to be able to come in and tweak a lot of this. Now, I wasn't focusing on how to design something so much as just how to use Onshape and get used to its functionality. There's a few things that I was kind of skipping on what would normally be done in the design process, but again, this is just so that you guys can become familiar with making things in Onshape. So there's a couple things that I thought that we could do here. There's going to be some edits that we need. One is that I originally put a groove in here and it looks a little better. Having this flat just kind of looks plain to me. So let's get in there and go into the treads and do it. See, the original one that we did is the one that's around the origin here. So how about we just go on to front plane isn't what I wanted. I wanted the right plane. So again, I'll hit the space bar to clear everything out. I'll click on the right plane and I'm going to sketch there. I'm going to hit N to go normal to that plane, to the sketch, to what I want to have for a sketch. And now that I'm in there, let's just roll back to the initial geometry or sketch 2, which was these hexes that we use. Let's put in a groove, and I think the easiest way to make a groove is again, let's establish some geometry based off of the origin. We're going to make a line that we can do a mirror off of. And we're also going to create another line coming out this way. So we have two lines that we can do some mirroring if we need to. And we'll create another straight line without making it construction geometry. We're just going to come down and go across to here. And let's also come across like so. Now I'm only going to draw half of it, and there is a good reason for it. Let's just zoom back in here. Okay, so one thing that we're going to need to do is establish what angle this line needs to be. One of the easiest things I'm thinking I can do is I want to kind of match the geometry that we currently have. So I'm going to select that line and this line, and it's going to tell me that the angle is 30 degrees. We'll come in here and we'll dimension this one to be 30 degrees to this line as well. It's just reversed. Hit enter. There we go. And then we want this point there kind of be coincident with that. So again, we can come up here, we can hit coincident, or we could use the I key. And the next big thing would be like, how deep do we want this sort of notch to be? And I think something like that seems pretty reasonable, but let's just give it a dimension, and that way we can have the sketch that's all blanked out and we're good to go. So this is 2 millimeters. Let's just do 2. Perfect. Now we're going to do the mirror to get everything working out properly. So we'll click on the mirror line. We need this guy and this guy. Now we'll close off the sketch. Just rotate this down so we can see it all. And we're going to get out of the mirror command. We're going to click on it again, because this time we're just going to use this as the mirror line. We'll grab all these guys and mirror them over. And that should work out just fine. Now, the way I set things up is I could take this and I can extrude it so that it goes through both parts. Not necessarily the best thing you can do, because if one of these parts gets moved for any reason, that might cause some issues. So what we're going to do is I'm going to cut out this groove in both of these, or not in both of these, in the one. We don't want it to be blind, we want it to be symmetric. And 25 seems to cut through everything, so that's kind of what we want. Now the problem that we have here is that one of these has the groove in it on both sides, but one of these doesn't. So again, you could make another sketch and go through all of this, but one thing that we can take a look at is that we'll click on this guy here, and you'll notice that it highlights in the tree that the linear pattern. I'd be willing to bet that if we take this sketch 7, which is that sketch that has those two things, and we can click and drag and bring it before the linear pattern. So you click and hold and drag it to before the linear pattern. Now this is sort of a little bit of a hack. Don't use it always. It can cause a fair amount of issues, but when it does work, it is the ultimate friend of yours. So now we've put that notch in this one here before the pattern, the pattern comes out and it brought everything out just like it was before. Oh, I see that I missed putting that fillet in on this guy. Not sure if 1mm will be too big or not, but we'll find out. No, 1mm looks pretty good. We'll fillet both of those out and leave that sharp little point in the bottom. That's fine for me because that's something that won't touch the skin. And again, this is one of those situations where this fillet can go before that linear pattern. So we can drag and drop it, and then you'll notice that the other part will update to include that. Now with the fillet that I just did, I only did the top section. So let's edit that. Let's roll this thing upside down, and we'll grab these edges as well. Perfect. And now that it's going to rebuild, we're going to have that nice little groove and everything. So now we've corrected those two, how is it going to affect the assembly? Well, everything in the assembly is going to update as well. So let's go back to the belt assembly. As long as we haven't changed any major geometry, there's not going to be any red flags, and we'll have all that extra geometry added to it, and everything's tickety-boo. So that makes a lot of people very happy as far as being able to do stuff. So we've done the first edit to a part, or to a couple of parts, and everything seems to have gone quite well. So a little while ago, I created a hex bit set in public documents. We're going to go to other documents. We are going to go to public. And I created a thing called hex bit set, and you can see that it's right here. So now we have a bunch of bits that we can use. Got a bunch of tiny guys, a bunch of fat guys. I basically added as many of the ones that I could find as I could. One thing that we're going to do, let me think here. We don't have to choose all of them. We can choose the ones that we will use on a regular basis. So we can say choose the 2mm bit. I'm going to place that one in there, 2mm hex. And we got the 3mm hex. Those are pretty standard for using on a 3D printer. And a 4 is a pretty standard as well. And let's see, Phillips bit. Every screwdriver set should have a Phillips bit. I got 2 more. Because I'm Canadian, we have a screwdriver called a Robertson, which is a square bit, and a slot bit. Okay, now that we've had those big bits brought in, let's find some smaller bits. Okay, so we inserted those guys. Again, let's go to other documents and we'll insert some of the other ones. So we'll go to public, hex bit set, version 2, and I just generated a bunch of small hex bits as well. Now we have the hexes, which are the H3s. Now the files that I got for this I found on GrabCAD, and I imported them into Onshape. Make sure that if you're doing stuff like that, you're not stealing somebody's intellectual property, but for the most part I feel reasonably safe sharing these around. Let's see, we want a Torx. We've got Phillips Torx sorter T's. So these are the small ones, and we've got 4 slots for some Torx. So let's go for a 10, 15, 20, and the T4. So we can get the small Torx bits in here. And again, you can use different bits that you want by coming into the hex bit set and choosing the ones that you would like to use. But now that we've got all those in there, let's put them in and put them in proper spots here. So we're going to do a fasten mate, and let's take a couple of these bits and place them in the right spot. I'm going to take this guy here. We'll rotate the model around. And we want to place that fixed to the very bottom face of this guy here. So again, you can see how some of that geometry, if I mouse over here, sometimes it'll hide away. And if it does hide away, then what you can do is you can always come in and hit the shift key. So again, this one's been mated in backwards. So we're going to invert the mate so it sticks out the way it should. And then we got to make sure that the orientation's right. Now you can see that this hex bit, let's zoom in here. You see this hex bit is like 90 degrees out. And this is where some of these things come in super handy. So you can reorient the secondary axis. So if you click on this, it's going to rotate around the axis. And you can see how that brings it right into the position that you want. And we'll say that that's okay. We'll just keep on going and inserting all of these bits. I'll fast forward through a lot of this so you don't have to sit here and listen to me ramble on and on. So one thing I just did there was kind of interesting is that there was this piece here was blocking my view of being able to mate things. So you can hide it, come in, grab the geometry you want, and then come back in later and bring it up into the regular view. So don't always feel like if something's hiding something, you can always hide it so that it gets out of your way and you'll be able to see everything you need to see. Okay, so now that we've gotten all those bits in there, I'm really glad I did that because there's one thing that I noticed is that these guys stick out far enough that they actually bump into theirs. So with the small bit holders or the treads, we're going to have to make that one hole, I don't know, say 2 or 3 millimeters deeper. And that's fairly easy to do. So let's just come in here and just like before, we're not going to worry about the large hole tread. We don't need to see the link either. What we do need to do is move that one face. So we're going to come in here, we're going to move face. We're going to select that one face here. And we're going to get it so it offsets. We want it to go to the opposite direction. You can see how it popped towards us. We want it to go away from us. And I think 5 millimeters is a little extreme. I'm thinking 2 will probably do it. Just rotate around and we can get that other face in the other pocket to move back as well. Now we're using the move face command to move this. One thing that we could do as well is we could go in and change the depth of the cut that we made when we actually cut that in there. I can't remember which extrude we did, but again, this is one of those good examples where if we said, hey, this extrude, well here, how about we go in and we find it. So you can see how I have to search through and wait until something highlights that looks right as far as the extrude cut goes. And let's see what if that's it. Okay, so that's the extrude cut that we have in the other part. So what we'd end up having to do is to change that depth so we could come in and edit it and change how deep it actually goes into cut. But that also affects both parts, and the depth we have for the large parts is fine. So in this case, the move face is a reasonable way of going about doing it. It adds more features and it is a bit kludgy, but it's something that we can all live with. So let's go back to the assembly. And now you can see that all of these bits suddenly have all the clearance that we need. So if we come to a top view, we can see everything the way we actually want it to be. So this is good. We're well on our way to finishing this guy off.